Something that's never heard on the podcast is me doing the mic test before I get started, and just the terrible, lewd, raunchy things that I say always fills the little recording studio. Hello, welcome back to a new episode of It Sure Is a Podcast. Last week was a little bit here or there with uploads, but also I uploaded right in the middle of the week. So I'm like, I did it. I got my one day done. And I was looking back at how many episodes we have. We're on 32. Wild. Wild stuff. And people still listen to it. You know, and a lot of people might get discouraged by the few numbers, like the 4 or 5. But then I saw a tweet the other day. I think it was in relation to streamers. And it said, okay, those numbers, that might be a little sad, but think of how many of your friends actually just sit there and watch you play games? Now, I'm the type of person, I love to watch people play games. Like, my friend got a copy of Monster Hunter Rise, and I'm talking to him, I'm like, dude, can I come over and watch you? And he's like, no, we could play together, because I'm like, I just want to watch you play it. Just because I think it would be very interesting to see how he plays it, because I play it very differently. Which, that's a topic we'll get to. But I'm the type of person who likes to watch people play games. So if I could have just 2 people listen to rantings of a madman, or 2 people show up on my Twitch stream, www.com. Hold on. I just woke up. My brain was short circuiting. Twitch.tv/heroic turnman. Okay, I was trying to do a little plug there. Actually, I had quite a few people show up the other night. But my computer's being a little wonky with certain games, so we only play certain things, but it is what it is. It's actually enjoyable because I like that aspect of talking to people. But before we really get into the meat and potatoes of today, I have to come out and I have to say that I was wrong. In a previous episode, I talked about kind of the YouTube people who make videos and stuff, and I probably said some negative comments not coming from that perspective. So recently I was playing quite a bit of Hypercharge Unboxed, which is a wave defense first-person shooter, but you play the role as 80s and 90s toys, and you defend these little, they're called hypercores, but they're just these little bases you have to protect from waves of enemies. I just had so much fun with it that I decided to start to make a video. And I've been working on the video on and off for about 2 weeks. It's 10 minutes. And just to get things lined up and things out there, it's a lot more work than I ever thought it would be. So this is me from experience. I take back the negative things I said. I am a big dum-dum. A big dum-dum. So, with that being said and that aired out, and eventually once that video is up, I will let you all know what it is. I kind of have these thoughts that I always want to get out there, kind of like what I do on the podcast. I just throw out all this crap in my brain and it needs to get out. And I think a part of my ADHD likes that because it's not in my head anymore when it gets out. It's so funny. After I record a podcast, I will literally sit there and I will feel at ease because all the crap that was in my brain for that moment is out. It's gone. And it's just, it's such a release, such a relief. A release and a relief. So I think I finally understand Monster Hunter. It took me quite a while, but I think I get it now. I had friends, and I, looked inside from the outside. Whenever a new Monster Hunter would come out, people would lose their minds, and they would be so excited, kind of like whenever a new Dragon Quest comes out, which is so wild to me still, which I wish, our dumb little US of A did something like this, where whenever a new Dragon Quest title comes out in Japan, pretty much all of Japan shuts down as a national holiday because they started to get the hint that, when a new Dragon Quest comes out, everyone calls off of work. So they're just like, you know what? Go get your Dragon Quest. Go take a day off. Play Dragon Quest. And it's not everybody, but it just gets to the point where there's so many people. They're like, all right, we're gonna shut everything down for a little bit, and that's just wild to me. I wish we did that for games, but also America's taste in games are pretty terrible. Coming from with that statement, I feel like I need to put on a fedora and scratch my neck beard while I say that. Like, yes, the America market doesn't like the games I like, so they're bad. So what I was getting at, Monster Hunter. I have been very touch and go with the series. I played it on the Wii U, which I don't even remember what that one was called. And I'm not even going to edit this out. I'm literally going to go over to my computer here and just type in what it was because it's going to bother me. And as soon as I touch my computer, just updates start showing up like, hey, listen, here's another update. Here's another update. Did you die in the last hour? Updates. All right, here we go. Monster Hunter. Okay. So that was Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. So that was kind of my starting point with this series. I kind of played it there. Then I got Monster Hunter World. And what it boiled down to was I just didn't understand what the game wanted me to do. I was so used to leveling up actual levels, getting gear, and adding perks in my kind of role-playing games that I didn't understand what it was wanting from me. And in Monster Hunter World, I understood a little better, but isn't it wild when you remember playing a game when you're younger and you just don't get it at all? And you're just like, this game's stupid. But you go back to it later and you're like, wait a minute. This is actually really cool. This is really in depth. And that's kind of the idea of this gamer maturity where you reach this point where you are ready to understand and fully grasp what the game is trying to do. And that's kind of the same thing that could be said for like those really insane RPGs on the PlayStation 2. There's a few of them I played when I was younger and I just didn't get it. And then going back to them as an adult, I'm like, oh, so that's what that system was trying to do. Yeah, I get it now. So I think I reached the age of gamer maturity where I understand what the game wants from me and what the game is going for. I mean, it's just the game is you are in a village and the story doesn't necessarily matter. I don't think it ever has because I think Monster Hunter World was the only game that I remember where the story actually kind of took a front line for everything. Yeah, because even this one has kind of thrown it to the side. Basically, there's enough of a narrative thread for you to get off your butt, go out, and go save your village from all the giant monsters, the giant beasties. And World, it was like traveling to a new land, and then there was all this other stuff. But I never beat World either. Because I hit this wall where I wasn't progressing anymore. And what the game asks of you is to increase your weapons and get better types of weapons for whatever of the, I mean, I think it's maybe 20 different types of like weapon archetypes that you can use because there's like a hammer, a bow gun, a bow. The thing I use is a insect glaive where I have this like double-sided spear, but I have this bug slapped on my arm. So what I can do is I shoot a pheromone onto the monster, and depending where I hit, then I send my bug out, and the bug will either like do some kind of bleed damage, or it will take some health, and then when it comes back, it'll give me that health back. But also last night, this is how complex these mechanics are. I was playing the game, and I kind of figured out some things. Okay, you do this and that. I found out with the bug glaive, you can use it like a pogo stick and bounce around. Like you'll lift yourself up on the spike, fling yourself over, land, just start slashing at him and then pogo stick on him, flip over to the other side. I never knew this was a thing. And I had to look up the button combos. And then once I figured that out, I was like, yes. And I mean, I was playing a lot of it yesterday. What time is it? It's all right. As recording, it's 8:58. I was up till 3 a.m. So do some math. I woke up at 8:30. I know that's terrible, but I have that internal clock that screams, "Hey, it's this time. You need to wake up." So I woke up. And I have a big old cup of coffee here. Big old cup. Actually, I'm going to take a sip of it right now. Do the one thing they never say to do on a podcast is I drink something. Oh, it's so good. I kind of make my own blend of stuff, and it's like, it takes longer to make, but it's so much better. So back to Monster Hunter Rise. Yeah, I was just so sucked into the experience, and another thing I really like about those games is when you team up with people online, it's just a bunch of people running around slapping these giant dinosaurs. And it's fun. I actually, right now, I'm kind of shocked how much I'm enjoying the game a little bit, like a little more than I thought I would, which just caught me off guard because I'm like, wait a minute. And the only reason I got it was it looked pretty good, but I talked about this in a previous episode where Switch games kind of come and go. Like they'll be hard to find. You can always download it, but I'm one of those I would like to have a physical copy. I have games over on my shelf that I haven't even opened and I just purchased. I'm going down the line of like almost being a collector of Switch games because like what if I want to play them and then I don't have access to a physical copy? And a lot of times they were on sale too. So I got it like that, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it because my friend has been talking it up. He's so excited about it. I sit down, I play it, and I start to my matured brain starts to put the pieces together, and I'm like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And also the store I go to, there's this little it's sort of a chain, but there's only like 7 locations altogether, so it's kind of smaller. This kind of used and new used store that isn't GameStop. So I went there to try to purchase a copy, but they were fresh out. And then I decided to stroll up to the old Walmart just because I know they'll usually have a copy. And the copy I got was the last one on a shelf that held 5 racks just for Monster Hunter Rise. So it's that thing where, oh, wow, this is actually a big deal. And I also saw a copy of Hades. Hades is the rogue-like game from Supergiant Games, which they did Bastion, Pyre, Transistor, which I love those titles. And I didn't know they had a physical copy, and I saw it there, and that was a thing. I'm like, I have to buy it, only because if I don't, I'm never going to see it again. Anyone else struggle with this, where like you see something rare? And even when I went down to Pittsburgh recently, we went to the it's called the Exchange. That's what the store is called. So, all right, there's a little drop hint. I live in one of 7 places. If you looked it up, like, oh, where does Brandon live? You can find it. And those, like, we went in there. He was selling some stuff because he was cleaning out a lot of stuff from his old apartment. Sold some stuff, and there was like a few games on the shelf that he's sitting there freaking out about. And I'm looking at it, and I don't even know what they are, but he's like explaining how rare they are, and talking about all this other stuff related to it. And I'm just like, oh, I get it, because this was kind of the Hades thing. Like they probably printed only so many copies, and then we're not gonna ever see it again. Kind of like the Mario Superstar All-Star Collection. I'm sorry, the Super Mario All-Star Collection, right? Because on the 31st, so today is 3/28, so in 3 days, if I did math right, those games will not be made anymore. They'll have no more production. And then if you purchase them on the Switch, they'll actually separate, right? You won't get it as a bundle for $50. You'll get each individual game for I don't know what the pricing is on it. But yeah, scummy of Nintendo. But I mean, Nintendo makes good stuff, and it's capitalist corporate America. Hello. Welcome to the future, baby. Back to Monster Hunter Rise. I apologize. So, that's where my ADD kicks in and I go off on a rabbit trail. So, I think I finally understand Monster Hunter. I get it because I saw a list of, all right, these are all the pieces you need. Okay, how do I get these pieces? And usually you'd have to look up on a walkthrough, but if you read through the pieces, it'll just tell you what you need to get. So, oh, I need to go hunt this thing. And I guess the allure of it is there's a drop rate. So after you go through all this stuff, killing this monster, you might not get it. So you have to do it a few times. But when you do get it, there's that sense of accomplishment. And the only reason I know that is because I did it yesterday where I had to hunt this stupid kind of duck mixed with a velociraptor thing. And I did it myself once and it took forever and I didn't get the thing I wanted. So I went online and I'm like, oh, look, people are hunting this. So I joined them. And then, like, I did that a few times. It was just, it's like, I guess the idea of the gameplay loop is simple, but all the mechanics and all the systems are complicated. So on a surface level, you could get enjoyment out of it just by running at it and slapping it. But if you want to invest the time, that's where you're going to get the most fun out of the experience. So I think I finally understand Rise now. I think I get Monster Hunter. But I only think the reason I was able to come to this conclusion is because all the hours, the hundreds of hours I put into The Witcher 3, on the harder difficulties, whenever you go into a combat situation, you have to prepare. Like, you really have to be looking in your pouch like, all right, I have this many potions. I'm going to use this oil on the blade. This is a necrophage, so I want to use this oil. I have some bombs. I'm going to use my spell trap to put down a trap where I can hold it in a place. Right, on harder difficulties, which I'm playing through the whole game again, which is incredibly rare, throwing that out there again, for me, preparing before every combat situation it's a must. You can't not do it. And now, like, with that being said, a lot of that translates over to Monster Hunter, where do I want to trap it? No, okay. So I want to pick up these bombs, I want to craft this stuff. But a lot of times that stuff is in the environment too. So once you get used to a map, you know, all right, before I go to the monster, I have to go up on this ledge, I have to get these bugs that make flash grenades, and then I can use those flash grenades. It's preparation. It has the gears in your brain turning. And for a Switch game, it looks really good. And it's using the RE engine, which is the Resident Evil engine. Obviously from the Resident Evil games, because Capcom makes Monster Hunter. But yeah, I am just all about it. I'm all on board. I'm just very excited about Monster Hunter right now, which is just cool. So you may be wondering, Brandon, are you still writing that book? Yes, I am. I sure am. Briar is still being written. With the time off I ever get, that is when I do it. And also, during that week off, I needed to be sure that I never pushed myself to do anything because I needed to relax. I've been looking up some information on self-publishing, and it kind of talks about the nightmare of it. Daniel Greene, that YouTuber, which we're going to transition into a subject there. But yeah, it's still being written, but the more I write, the more I get deeper into the process, I realize the disconnects and the plot holes. And that's what I always hate in any kind of media, is a plot hole, where it's just like, well, what about this? Why is this not explained? Why don't they just do this? And I'm not talking about like a hole in the story or the lore that makes you turn on your brain and have a little bit of imagination and figure out, hey, what was the you know, what was the purpose of this? Was there a reason that this happened? I'm talking more like comparing to like Souls lore, where a lot of that is piece it together at your own pace. And also put the pieces together, but nothing is explicitly said, and there's some things you still don't know. But with the information you know, you can draw that conclusion or even speculate in different perspectives. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where it's just like, why didn't they just do that? Or where did that character go? And it's never explained. And there's such an emphasis put on a character and then they disappear. Yeah. So Briar is still being written. Briar, the tone of it has been brought back a little bit. I am kind of at the point where I'm over halfway through writing it, a bunch of pages, and I'm kind of I'm a little discouraged because what happened there was that all these ideas were popping out of my head and all these concepts were flowing, which was a beautiful thing. But at the end of the day, all those pieces were kind of disjointed, and I would come up for no, I'm sorry. I would come up with a answer for something or a reason for something, but then it wouldn't make sense with previous statements, right? So it's all disconnected, it's disjointed. And I have actually done this little process where I take everything I have, I have made this chart of what every chapter its goal is to, what's the purpose of this chapter? Is it to develop this character? Is it to have this event happen? Is it meant to do this, A, B, or C? But definitely, I think right now I just need to finish it. And then with that outline in mind, then I take a step back. Then I go ahead and I'm like, all right, let's put this together. Let's thread this together a little tighter. So why did I bring this up? Well, I recently just finished a book from the YouTuber that I expressed earlier, Daniel Greene. He wrote his own book. It's a novella, which is slightly shorter than a novel. And here's the thing. You can pre-order it or it showed up on Audible and I have free tokens. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get it. But my intent is to purchase it just because whenever I finish a book that I like, I always go ahead and purchase the actual copy because, yeah, I'm getting it for free from Amazon Prime, but I still want to support whatever that is. And especially this because this is just a guy who does internet videos, right? And the book he made, all right, let's do a quick book review. I know you come here for video games and nerd stuff, but books go in the nerd category. The book is called Breach of Peace. And it is short. It's sweet. I really enjoyed it, and I was actually left wanting more. And what's interesting about Daniel Greene's writing style is that he focuses more on the character. And after listening to it and really digesting it, I'm like, not a lot of the locations were ever described as I'm used to with some more flowery writing, like from Andrei Stepskovsky, whatever the Witcher guy name is. I butchered that. I apologize. The guy who wrote the Witcher books. He is very flowery, and you get these very vibrant details on everything that is happening in the world. And he just focused more on characters. Daniel just said, hey, I'm just working on the characters. And you really got an idea for the characters. And you just had a concept of, okay, they're at a manor. Okay, there's a shed out back. Okay, simple. But it was good. The story was very interesting. It was a sort of murder mystery, sort of. I don't want to give anything away because of how short it is. Because if I were to give any context away, it's short. The Audible book was only 3 hours long. like 3 hours and 45 minutes or something. And I just blew through that. I was eating that up. It's good, and especially for someone doing their first writing, and it's obvious that this guy cares about his craft and doesn't want to do anything half-assed. It was a good first outing. I enjoyed it. Breach of Peace, like look it up. Just to give you a description of the cover. So like, is this the book? Because I noticed like 2 other books with the same name. It will say Daniel Greene on it. So that's a hint. But if you're like, I just want to look at the picture. It's a woman and 2 guys kind of spaced out on the cover, woman on the right side, guy on the left side, and then guy further back in this kind of London-esque city. It's at night. It's called Breach of Peace. Now, like, after I describe it, I realized, like, okay, just look up Breach of Peace. Who's it by? Daniel Greene. That's what I could have said, but I went down the rabbit trail of really describing the book. It was a good read. I enjoyed it. I look forward to purchasing an actual copy. And on his channel, he actually has a discussion on the process of how to self-publish, because I know right now some people really want to pursue that, want to do that so they don't have a cut taken out, which I can understand. And I think that's probably the route I'll go for with Briar, only because how would I convince a publisher about, hey, I wrote a book. It's kind of in this Middle Ages kingdom, right? That is kind of has this political sort of intrigue, but not necessarily, but this kind of strife that you find in Game of Thrones with little hints of The Witcher, but instead of people, it's all about bugs. How do I sell that? That's going to be an interesting sell. Someone's going to look at me and be like, really? Huh. Okay. That's neat, I guess. All right, next. Like, that's how I feel like it's going to go. So I think that's a route off to go. But right now, the goal is we finish the book and we go through and edit it. And I'm going to have to find editors for people to just comb through this thing and find all the grammatical errors. And there's a lot of instances where I over-explain things. Kind of a lot like this podcast. I like to over-explain things. And in my brain, it sounds right. But then when you read it, you're just like, it feels like you took a bite that was way too big and then it was hot and you're like, and there's like steam coming out and you don't know whether to spit it out or like put it on the side of your mouth. And that's what some of my writing's like. So, yeah, it's a good book. Breach of Peace by Daniel Greene. I really recommend a read. I'm going to say a controversial statement. The statement will be very controversial for older listeners and me of my age. Everyone's going to be like, Brandon, you were the chosen one! You were supposed to destroy them, not join them! My statement is, Fortnite ain't that bad. Apex Legends ain't that bad. It's really fun to hate on the Battle Royale, especially Fortnite. But I'll jump in, play a few rounds, enjoy myself. And sometimes they got some skins, like they had the Alien skins and the Sigourney Weaver skins. And I'm at the spot where I'm like, I gotta buy that. I have to purchase it. I'd be an idiot not to, because Alien is my favorite movie series of all time. Not my favorite movie, but movie series. Except Resurrection. No, not completely. Like, Resurrection still had some neat things. I just consider it an offshoot, honestly, in the series. But, yeah, I like them. Okay. An Apex Legend has kind of started to get its crap together a little bit, even though some of its practices of loot boxes and stuff is just ridiculous. And that's all EA stuff. It's funny how EA purchased Respawn Entertainment, which were the people who made Apex Legends. And Apex Legends takes place in the Titanfall universe, and I love Titanfall. And I know we talked about it on the podcast at one point, but I'll tell you what, I'm just having such a good time with it. And also, there's always these little hints of the Titanfall universe, which I got I'm looking over at my shelf there. I got like action figures of BT and Jack Cooper from Titanfall 2. I got all the Funko Pops. I love this series. And Titanfall 2 is a brilliant, brilliant game, and I have that downloaded on my computer somewhere. Such a good game. And it just, the reason Titanfall 2 didn't do as good as, the corporate overlords of EA wanted them to was because they released it in a really terrible time. And it was overshadowed by the two big sequels in mainline series that they had. So, like, are you going to take a risk on, oh, yeah, look at that. It's the sequel to my favorite military shooter. Or it's like, oh, there's a robot game. I'll do the thing I'm used to. Because that's what people do. They always gravitate to the thing that they're used to, thing that they're comfortable with. But Apex has been good. It's been enjoyable. Even when I just get absolutely slaughtered in the first 5 seconds of landing. What always bothers me is like how people land way before I do. And I'm like, how? I'm like, we all left the ship at the same time. How'd you get here first? I just imagine it just someone like beelining straight down to the core of the plane and just. And I'm like, just like we're, dropping as a team. And the game is always better when it's a team. I like the team game more. I don't like playing my own because here's a secret. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna look around, make sure no one's listening. I'm really bad at video games. So I always like to play with a team. That's my kind of interaction that I enjoy, the cooperative, like Killing Floor, which I never really got around to playing that. Hypercharge, which I talked about earlier in the episode, that's all cooperative. Risk of Rain 2, Deep Rock Galactic. We're going to put a pin in the Risk of Rain 2 because they had an update. Big anniversary update. But yeah, Apex is great. I don't know what more to say about it. I've just been enjoying it. I think I go in waves with this kind of stuff where I'll play it good for a season and then I kind of just drop off just because, all right, I got my enjoyment out of it. But also, I never had to pay for it. That's the plus side of free to play. You just play the game for free. And if you want to, I guess, do more with your experience, that's when you can put the time in and kind of grind for levels and grind for, a lot of it's cosmetics, but you get the idea. So let's hop on back to Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2 had a update, big anniversary update, adding a new survivor, which is a playable characters, which is the bandit, which is kind of crazy. But also they added a lot of maps and then kind of reworked just the tiles. Because every time you land, it's kind of randomly generated to an extent. And some of that's been kind of tweaked and fixed out. Risk of Rain 2 and I have a very strange relationship. I love it. I will really support it. If someone's ever looking for a game, I always like, oh yeah, go play Risk of Rain 2. Go give that a try. But I can't play it by myself. That's the thing. I have to play it with other people. That's one of those games where my enjoyment comes from playing with other people. By myself, it's bad. I had to collect some footage for the video I'm working on with Risk of Rain 2. And I went in there, all right, I'm dropping on the first map. I'll just get some items and then I'll fight a boss and I'll just record that. I was getting my butt kicked the whole time. Like, I didn't even get to the boss. I died so early because I'm just that bad at video games. Another coffee drink, I apologize. But yeah, I'm just that bad at video games. And I just feel bad for being bad. But also, that's a game where I always have to play with people. And they do have like a matchmaking system, but it's kind of wonky because you'll join a match, but like, depending how far they are in, you won't join. You'll like be spectating and waiting in the back wings until their round is over, which is bizarre to me. Which I think like you should just have them drop in. But I guess that wouldn't make sense because it's all based on the items you find, and that's how you get stronger and stronger to the point where it breaks characters. But, like, I don't know. There's probably a workaround on it. It's probably something that you could do with it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reaching here. Maybe I'm just being, heads in the clouds. Heads in the cloud? Head in the clouds. What other head of my tongue? All right, we're not going down that road. Nope, we're not talking about that. But yeah, Risk of Rain 2 had the anniversary update. I noticed a lot of games like that have been having this big anniversary update. It's been out for like a year. Um, like Animal Crossing had a update. I don't even know what's in the update. Animal Crossing updates are weird because the updates are features that we just had in previous games, but also I understand why they do this and people still complain about this, but the reason they like the content is there, it's sitting there ready to go because only reason I know this is because the studio who made Splatoon 2 was a studio that worked on Animal Crossing New Horizons and they announced Splatoon 3. So obviously all their primary staff are working on that. But with Animal Crossing, like everything was there. They only put it behind a time gate only because of time travel, right? People could just set the clock, go into the future, and a lot of holidays and a lot of events would be ruined for people in our, information hungry digital age. So I kind of respect it that they're like, okay, yeah, you have the whole game, you have the whole experience we want, but we're holding this back because we know how you guys are. We know what you do with your games. We know you just freak out and are like, woo, I'm going to see everything with a video game. Which is a perfect segue into my next thing where, like, where's the mystery of games? Where has it gone? Because we don't have it anymore. I recently stumbled upon a title called Neverhood. No, I'm sorry, not Never. Everhood. It's a strange RPG, kind of in line with Undertale, but instead of like combat situations, it's reverse Guitar Hero, where you're dodging all the notes that are coming at you. And I got halfway through this video and I was interested in the concept, and I had to do this to myself. I cut myself off from it. I'm like, nope, I saw what I want to see. I'm interested. Okay, I'm not watching anymore to save myself so I can have that experience of, wow, that's so cool. That's so creative. Instead of knowing everything as soon as you go into the experience. Now, sometimes I'm very contradictory of myself. That's what I'm about. Right. So I sometimes love that experience, but sometimes I will not even play a game until I've had it spoiled for me, or even a movie because it didn't look interesting. But then they, as in my friends or someone I know, will explain, oh, well, it's really cool because of this. I'm like, why is it cool? And they're like, it's spoilers. I'm like, that's fine. Just spoil it for me. And then they explain it, and I'm like, wow, that does sound really cool. So something I didn't have an interest in, I have an interest now because you had to spoil it. But at the same time, that mystery, that unknown is kind of missing, I guess we could say. It's something that is just not present anymore. And it's really interesting when a game will come out and you've never heard of it because if you occasionally just browse the internet for anything related to games, you will always be just interrupted or you will always be informed about most games coming out. So this was one. I haven't even started playing it because at the same time I downloaded it, I'm like, well, I got Monster Hunter Rise. So I would very much like to see my very blind approach to this, blind walkthrough on it. It looks great. It's all pixel art and wonderful. It's exciting to have something that's sitting there that I'm like, I don't know what you are. I have no idea what you're about, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited to have that little mystery. But today's a little shorter episode. Hope you don't hate me for it, but I've exhausted everything my brain wants to say. So with that being said, I hope you all stay safe. I hope you all have a wonderful day. You're great. I love you guys. And I'll catch you in the next episode.